The weathered for sale sign had been there so long, it had become part of the landscape. $1, that's all they were asking for. The forgotten River Pine Ranch. Most folks called it cursed. But to Olivia Morgan, 7 months pregnant and running from a life she needed to leave behind, it looked like salvation. The peeling, paint-sagging porch and overgrown fields whispered of possibility rather than defeat. She didn't know why the property had been abandoned decades ago or why no one in town would talk about the previous owners. All she knew was that this was her chance, perhaps her last one. Olivia's ancient Subaru groaned up the overgrown driveway, tall grass scraping the undercarriage. She parked beside the porch engine ticking as it cooled. The ranch house loomed before her, weathered yet dignified in its neglect. She pressed a hand against her swollen belly. Well, little one, this is home now. The key felt heavy in her palm. Iron ornate with strange symbols etched along its shaft, nothing like the modern keys she'd expected. The realtor had simply handed it over with averted eyes after Olivia signed the peculiar $1 contract. Olivia paused, remembering Jason's rage the night she'd left. The shattered glass, his promise to find her. She shuddered, pushing the memory away. The key slid into the lock with unexpected smoothness. One turn and the door creaked open, releasing the musty breath of decades. Inside, dust motes danced in shafts of afternoon light. Sheets draped over furniture like ghosts. Olivia moved cautiously through the front room, pulling covers to reveal surprisingly well-preserved sofa, rocking chair, and oak dining table. Not exactly move-in ready, she murmured, running her finger through a layer of dust on the mantelpiece, but the structure seemed sound. No water damage or major structural issues that her limited budget couldn't address. In the kitchen, antique appliances stood like sentinels from another era. She turned a faucet, experimentally surprised when it sputtered to life with rusty water that gradually ran clear. You're lucky the previous owner kept utilities connected, a gruff voice called. Olivia gasped, spinning to face a weathered man standing in the doorway. Didn't mean to startle you, he said, hat in hand. Name's Bob Mitchell. Handle maintenance for properties around these parts. Olivia Morgan. She instinctively placed a protective hand over her belly. Bob's eyes narrowed at her surname. Morgan, you say? Yes. Is that significant? He studied her face for an uncomfortable moment. Town was surprised to hear someone bought this place even if for $1. It seemed structurally sound, she offered. Oh, the bones are good. Morgan's built things to last. A pause. You know why it was abandoned? Olivia shook her head. Folks around here say the land has peculiarities. His gaze drifted to her belly, especially for expecting mothers. A chill climbed Olivia's spine despite the summer heat. I don't believe in superstitions, Mr. Mitchell. Belief don't factor into some things, Miss Morgan. He replaced his hat. I'll check your generator out back. You'll need it when storms hit. After he left, Olivia explored upstairs. 3 bedrooms, a bathroom with a clawfoot tub. The master bedroom held a 4-poster bed still made up with yellowed linens. In a smaller room, wallpapered with faded circus animals, Olivia felt a flutter in her womb, stronger than any movement yet. She placed her hand where the baby kicked. You like this room, don't you? She whispered. We'll make it yours. As sunset painted the hills gold, Olivia unloaded her meager possessions, clothes books, an old laptop, and a few kitchen essentials. She'd fled with only what fit in her car. Bob returned with a box of supplies, flashlights, matches, canned goods. Town's 20 minutes away in good weather, he explained. Longer when roads flood. Be prepared. Thank you. He hesitated at the door. Not my place to say this, but a woman in your condition shouldn't be out here alone. Olivia straightened. I've managed so far. Just, if anything strange happens, don't ignore it. He tipped his hat. Good night, Miss Morgan. That night, Olivia lay in the freshly made bed, listening to unfamiliar country sounds, crickets, distant coyotes, the house settling around her like an old man getting comfortable. We'll be fine, she told her unborn child, though. Uncertainty gnawed at her edges. This place is our fresh start. In her dreams, a woman in 1950s dress rocked in the chair downstairs, singing a lullaby Olivia somehow knew, but couldn't quite place. After 3 days of cleaning and organizing, Olivia's food supplies dwindled to crackers and peanut butter. She studied herself in the bathroom mirror, hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes, but a healthy flush to her cheeks from physical work. The isolation had been a balm to her nerves. Time to face civilization, she told her reflection. River Pine proved to be smaller than she'd expected. A handful of storefronts along a main street, an old-fashioned town square with a gazebo and a white steeple church. Olivia parked her Subaru in front of Eleanor's general store, feeling curious eyes tracking her through storefront windows. A bell jingled as she entered. The shop was a wonderful anachronism, wooden floors that creaked underfoot, glass jars of penny candy, household essentials, and local produce. A gray-haired woman looked up from behind the counter. "You must be the Morgan girl who bought the old ranch," she said without preamble. "Olivia Morgan," she confirmed, extending her hand. "News travels fast. Eleanor Green?" The woman replied, her handshake firm, despite gnarled knuckles. "In towns, this size news is all we've got. That and memories." She studied Olivia's face. "You've got the Morgan look about you." Olivia frowned. "I'm not related to the previous owners." Eleanor's eyebrows rose. Interesting coincidence, then. As Olivia gathered necessities, fresh vegetables, milk bread, cleaning supplies, she noticed conversations halting when she approached, resuming in whispers as she moved away. A toddler pointed at her belly until his mother hurriedly shushed him. At the register, Eleanor rang up her items with efficient movements. "You planning to stay long?" "Indefinitely," Olivia answered. "I'm fixing up the place." "Brave girl," Eleanor remarked. "That property's been empty since '84. Why so long?" "Folks say it's bad luck." Eleanor leaned forward. "But between us, land that good going for $1 suggests something more complicated." A middle-aged man in a sheriff's uniform entered, nodding politely to patrons before approaching Olivia. "Sheriff Thomas Kane," he introduced himself. "Thought I'd introduce myself to our newest resident." "Olivia Morgan," she replied, noting his quick assessing glance at her pregnant state. "Living out there alone?" "Yes, that's quite a distance if you need emergency services." He glanced meaningfully at her belly. "I'm aware." She stiffened slightly. "Just 7 weeks to go, and I'm perfectly healthy." Kane nodded slowly. "Well, program my number into your phone. Cell service is spotty out there, but it's better than nothing." He handed her a card, then added in a lower voice, "And if that ex of yours comes sniffing around, call immediately. Small towns hear things. Yours isn't a unique situation." Olivia's throat tightened. "Thank you." As she loaded groceries into her car, a sleek black SUV pulled up nearby. A well-dressed older man emerged, his tailored suit incongruous against the rustic backdrop of Main Street. "Miss Morgan, I presume Richard Westfield, Town Council President," he approached with practiced confidence. "I understand you've purchased the old Morgan place." "That's right," Westfield smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Bold move. Most city folks who try their hand at rural living last about a month before reality sets in, especially in your condition." Olivia met his gaze steadily. "I appreciate your concern, but I've done my research." "Research is one thing, experience is another," his tone condescending. "When you decide to sell and you will, my development company would be interested. We've been trying to acquire that parcel for years. It's perfect for our new resort community." "I'll keep that in mind," she responded coolly. Westfield handed her his card. "Sooner rather than later would be best for everyone. That place has a reputation, and we wouldn't want anything unfortunate to happen to a mother and child." The thinly veiled threat hung in the air as he returned to his vehicle. Driving back to the ranch, Olivia's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Her IT job had accustomed her to corporate intimidation tactics. Jason had taught her about more direct threats. Westfield was just another bully in a nicer suit. At the ranch, she found Bob examining the generator. "Had to replace the fuel line," he explained, wiping greasy hands on a rag. "Should run fine now, thank you." "I met some of the townsfolk today, including Richard Westfield." Bob's expression darkened. "Westfield's been after this land for years, wants to build some fancy resort. Swimming pools where crops should grow. Why hasn't he bought it for $1? It seems like an easy acquisition." Bob's gaze shifted toward the distant hills. Morgans had conditions in their will about who could own it. Family legacy stuff. "When the last known Morgan disappeared, your namesake but no relation, I gather it went into a complicated trust. Lawyers finally got tired of maintaining it, hence the nominal price. But there are still conditions. Owner has to live on the property, maintain it as a working homestead. No commercial development." Olivia absorbed this. "And Westfield can't find a loophole. He's tried." Bob hesitated. "Miss Morgan, don't mean to pry, but you picked a curious time in your life to start homesteading alone. I'm good with my hands, she replied, and I needed a fresh start. Bob nodded slowly. Well, I was a NASA agricultural engineer before retiring here. Designed sustainable farming systems for potential Mars colonies. If you're serious about making this work, I'd be willing to advise. Pro bono. Olivia's surprise must have shown on her face. Place has been part of my life too long to see it fall into Westfield's hands, he explained. They spent the afternoon assessing the property's infrastructure. Bob pointed out issues with the wiring, the well pump that needed servicing, the roof sections requiring immediate attention. His knowledge was extensive, his respect for the original construction evident. Whoever built this place knew what they were doing, he noted, examining a load-bearing beam, over-engineered everything by about 30%. Olivia found his practical approach reassuring. This was tangible, fixable, not like the whispers and superstitions. That evening, she tackled the electrical panel, replacing corroded breakers and tightening loose connections. Her father had been a contractor before abandoning the family. The few good memories she had involved working alongside him, learning to use tools properly. By nightfall, the ranch house had stable electricity throughout the main floor. Small victories, she murmured, running her hand along her belly as she surveyed her work. The next day brought steady rain, confining Olivia indoors. She used the time to create a renovation plan, categorizing projects by urgency, cost, and skill required. Her IT project management experience translated surprisingly well to homestead revival. As she worked, a floorboard in the living room caught her attention, slightly raised compared to its neighbors. Curious, she pried it up carefully, revealing a small cavity beneath. Inside lay a wooden box with intricate carvings. Olivia lifted it out, brushing away decades of dust. The box was heavier than expected, crafted from dense hardwood, with symbols similar to those on her key etched into its surface. The lid opened with a soft click, revealing a leather-bound journal. Property of Margaret Morgan, 1952, was inscribed on the first page in elegant handwriting. Beside the journal lay a tarnished brass key. Olivia's hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages. Margaret had been a botanist, documenting plants grown on the property and their medicinal uses. Detailed drawings accompanied notes on growing conditions, harvest times, and preparation methods. Interspersed were more personal entries. Jack insists his measurements are correct, that this land has unique properties. The government men were here again today, taking soil samples. They wear polite smiles but ask probing questions. Jack says his research could revolutionize agriculture, especially in challenging climates. I believe him, but worry about the attention we're attracting. Several pages later, the plants in the north field continue to exceed all growth projections. The soil composition doesn't explain it, nor does the irrigation system Jack designed. Something else is at work here. The local tribe's elder visited today, watching silently as I harvested herbs. Before leaving, she said simply, "The land chooses its caretakers." Yeah, Jack dismisses such talk, but I'm no longer certain. The journal continued detailing experiments, successes, and increasingly strange occurrences, plants that healed too quickly, crops that thrived despite drought, strange lights observed during thunderstorms. The final entry, dated September 1984, was written in a shakier hand. They're coming tomorrow. Jack refuses to leave, says his work is too important to abandon. But after what happened to Catherine, I can't stay. The land has power we've failed to respect properly. Perhaps someday another Morgan will return and find balance where we could not. Tucked into the last pages was a hand-drawn map of the property with specific locations marked Spring Stone Circle North Field, and a peculiar area labeled only as Convergence, near what appeared to be a cave system beneath the property. Olivia closed the journal, mind racing. Who was Catherine? What had happened to the Morgan family? And why did the last entry mention another Morgan, when Olivia had no known connection to these people? The brass key from the box gleamed in the lamplight, and its purpose a mystery. She tucked it and the journal into her bedside drawer, unsettled but intrigued. That night, the storm intensified. Wind howled around the eaves, rain lashed against windows. Olivia startled awake at midnight to a familiar sound that shouldn't be possible, the ancient radio in the kitchen playing music despite having no power cord. The same lullaby from her dream. Heart pounding, she crept downstairs. The radio sat silent and dark on the kitchen counter, but the rocking chair in the living room moved gently as though recently vacated. The next morning dawned clear, as if the storm had never happened. Olivia told herself the radio and rocking chair had been dreams products of pregnancy hormones and an overactive imagination stimulated by Margaret's journal. She spent the day repairing roof leaks exposed by the storm, grateful for physical tasks that left little room for dwelling on inexplicable occurrences. Bob arrived mid-afternoon with lumber for additional repairs, eyeing her work with approval. "You handle tools like someone who's done this before," he noted. "My father was a contractor," she explained, securing a flashing strip. "He taught me the basics before he left." Bob nodded, asking no further personal questions, a courtesy Olivia appreciated. Instead, he unrolled detailed property maps he'd brought. "These show the original irrigation systems," he explained. "Ingenious design for the 1950s. Jack Morgan was decades ahead of his time. Used principles we later adapted for NASA projects." Jack Morgan, Olivia tried to sound merely curious. "Was he an engineer, agricultural scientist with engineering background? Worked for the government during the Cold War." Bob tapped the map. "Developed experimental growing techniques here. Disappearance caused quite a stir back then." Disappearance, Bob glanced up. "The official story is they abandoned the property in '84, but neither Jack nor Margaret were ever seen again. Their daughter Catherine had already left years earlier after some kind of accident." Olivia's spine tingled with recognition of the name from the journal. "What kind of accident?" Bob shrugged. "Before my time. Town doesn't talk about it much. Bad business, whatever it was. They spent hours restoring sections of the original irrigation system." Bob's expertise proved invaluable, especially when they discovered that parts of the infrastructure were remarkably preserved despite decades of neglect. "Water still flows to the North Field," Bob noted with surprise. "Shouldn't be possible after all this time." Olivia recalled Margaret's journal entry about that particular field. "What makes this land special, Mr. Mitchell, agriculturally speaking?" Bob considered the question carefully. "Soil composition is unusual, higher mineral content than surrounding areas. But there's something else. Jack used to talk about electromagnetic properties, some kind of geological anomaly beneath the property that affects plant growth. Most folks thought he was chasing fantasies, but..." His voice trailed off. "But what NASA later confirmed, similar phenomena can affect botanical development. Nothing magical, just science we didn't fully understand yet." He looked at her curiously. "Why do you ask?" "Just trying to understand what I've bought," she replied, not quite ready to reveal Margaret's journal. That evening, Olivia used her laptop to research the Morgan family. Information was sparse: mentions of Jack's government work mostly redacted, botanical papers authored by Margaret, a single newspaper article from 1978 about an unexplained fire at a research facility with Jack Morgan listed among personnel. Nothing explained their disappearance or what had happened to Catherine. A week into her residence, Olivia had established a routine: morning repairs, afternoon planning, evening research. The physical work strengthened her body despite her advancing pregnancy, and the house was gradually becoming livable. She'd avoided exploring beyond the immediate grounds, focusing on making the house secure before her baby arrived. But Margaret's map called to her, its mysterious markings promising answers. Armed with the map, a backpack of supplies, and her phone for emergencies, Olivia set out toward the area marked Northfield. The overgrown path made walking difficult, but determination drove her forward. The field, when she reached it, was instantly recognizable despite decades of neglect. Unlike the rest of the property, this acre remained strangely clear of weeds, covered instead with uniform grass and scattered wildflowers that seemed to wave toward her as she approached despite the still air. At the field's center stood a circle of stones, just as marked on the map. 12 weathered boulders arranged with precision, each carved with symbols, matching those on her key and the wooden box. Olivia approached cautiously, a strange humming sensation building beneath her feet with each step. When she reached the circle, her child kicked vigorously as if responding to something imperceptible. The center stone featured a small depression that matched the shape of Margaret's brass key. Acting on instinct, Olivia retrieved it from her pocket and inserted it into the stone. Nothing visible happened, but the humming intensified, vibrating through her bones. The baby's movements became almost frantic, not distressed, but enormously energetic. Olivia withdrew the key hastily and the sensation subsided. She backed away from the circle, unsure what had just occurred, but certain it wasn't mere imagination. Returning to the house, she found Sheriff Kane's cruiser parked in the driveway. He stood on the porch, expression grave. Miss Morgan, he nodded in greeting. Thought you should know your ex-husband's been asking questions in town. Cold dread pulled in Olivia's stomach. Jason's here? Not yet, Kane clarified. Called the station claiming he's concerned about his pregnant wife, who's not in her right mind. Wanted to confirm if you'd taken residence here. What did you tell him? Olivia's voice was barely above a whisper. That we respect privacy, and Riverpine. Kane's eyes held hers steadily. But restraining orders are public record, and I've made sure my deputies know yours is active. Still locks only work on the law-abiding. Out here, response time isn't what you'd want in an emergency. Olivia nodded, fear mingling with gratitude for his straightforward warning. Kane hesitated, then added, I know it's not my business, but do you have somewhere else you could stay? Just until the baby comes. No, she answered honestly. And I wouldn't leave anyway. I've spent my life running from one bad situation to another. This place is mine. I'm making it safe for my child. Respect that, Kane nodded. But consider this. He handed her a small box. Satellite phone, works when cell towers don't. My direct line is programmed in. Use it if needed. Thank you, Olivia said, genuinely moved. Kane tipped his hat before adding, by the way, Westfield was asking about you at the council meeting. Seems mighty interested in your plans for this place. After he left, Olivia double-checked every lock and window. Jason finding her was always a possibility she'd prepared for, but facing it as reality sent her anxiety spiraling. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the now calm movements of her child. I promise to keep you safe, she whispered. And I will. The next day brought an unexpected visitor, an elderly man with wire-rimmed glasses and a tweed jacket despite the summer heat. Dr. Alan Harris, he introduced himself as Olivia answered the door. Professor of local history at the community college. Hope I'm not intruding. Olivia regarded him warily, maintaining a safe distance. What can I do for you, Professor? I understand you've purchased the Morgan property. His eyes were kind behind thick lenses. I've been documenting the area's history for decades. The Morgans feature prominently, though much of their story remains mysterious. I wondered if you'd found anything of historical interest during your renovations. The journal weighed on Olivia's mind, but caution prevailed. I'm just focused on making the place habitable before my baby arrives. Harris nodded understandingly. Of course, of course. But if you should discover anything, papers, photographs, research notes, I'd be most grateful for the opportunity to examine them. Jack Morgan's work was groundbreaking, though largely unrecognized. Olivia's curiosity overcame her reticence. What exactly was he working on? Harris's face lit up at the question. Sustainable agriculture techniques decades ahead of their time. He theorized that certain geological formations created electromagnetic fields that could enhance plant growth and resilience. The government funded his research initially, Cold War era, you understand. Food security was national security, but pulled support when results proved difficult to replicate elsewhere. Because the land here is unique, Olivia suggested. Harris looked at her sharply. That was Jack's claim. Yes, most scientists dismissed it as justification for failed experiments. But the crops from this land were undeniably extraordinary. His expression grew wistful. I met him once, you know. Brilliant man, deeply committed to his work. His disappearance left many questions unanswered. After extracting a promise from Olivia to contact him if she found any Morgan documents, Harris departed, leaving her with more questions than answers. That afternoon, Bob arrived with a pickup truck laden with supplies, lumber, roofing materials, plumbing fixtures. Thought you might need these for the nursery, he explained, unloading the items. My wife and I saved them after our grandchildren outgrew them. Crib needs reassembly, but it's solid oak. Olivia was speechless at the generosity. I can't accept all this without paying you. Bob waved away her protest. Consider it an investment in Riverpine's future. Been too long since a child was raised on this land. Together they carried the baby furniture to the room with circus wallpaper. The crib, once assembled, fit perfectly beneath the window as if the space had been designed for it. Have you picked a name? Bob asked as they worked. Olivia hesitated. Hannah, if it's a girl. After my grandmother, she was the only one who... She trailed off, unused to sharing personal details. Only one who was there for you, Bob finished quietly. Names matter. Carry weight. As they finished the nursery preparations, thunder rumbled in the distance, another storm approaching. Bob glanced out the window with a frown. That's moving in fast. You've got the generator ready? Olivia nodded, though something in his expression gave her pause. You seem concerned. Weather gets strange around here sometimes, he said cryptically. If it gets bad, call. Reception permitting. After he left, Olivia continued working, determined to complete the nursery before the storm hit. As she hung curtains, a glint of metal caught her eye, something wedged between floorboards near the closet. Using a screwdriver, she pried up the board to reveal a small silver locket. The tarnished pendant opened to show a black and white photograph of a young woman holding an infant with Catherine and Olivia, 1976, inscribed inside. Olivia stared at the image, blood rushing in her ears. Catherine, the daughter mentioned in Margaret's journal, and an infant named Olivia. Was it possible? Could she be that child adopted after whatever tragedy had befallen the Morgans? The implications staggered her. If true, she wasn't random. She was a Morgan by blood returning to family land. It would explain why the key had been available to her, why the $1 sale had been possible. It would also explain the strange connection she'd felt to the property from the moment she'd arrived. The storm hit with unexpected ferocity, rain hammering against the windows like thrown gravel. Olivia paced the living room, mind churning with questions the locket had raised. If she was related to the Morgans, why had no one told her? What had happened to Catherine, possibly her mother? Why had she been given up for adoption? Lightning struck nearby, followed instantly by thunder that shook the house to its foundations. The lights flickered, then died. Olivia reached for her flashlight, only to freeze at a sound from the kitchen, the radio playing that same haunting lullaby, though power was now cut to the entire house. Heart pounding, she forced herself to approach the kitchen doorway. The radio sat dark and silent on the counter, but the rocking chair in the living room behind her creaked rhythmically. Turning slowly, Olivia gasped. A woman sat in the chair, not fully materialized, but present enough to distinguish features similar to those in the locket photograph, though older. She rocked gently, mouth moving in the lullaby's words, though no sound came from her lips. Olivia's paralysis broke when her child kicked sharply. "Who are you?" she whispered. The figure looked up, expression surprised as though equally shocked to be seen. Her mouth formed words, "Olivia." Before any response was possible, another lightning strike hit even closer. The apparition vanished as all windows in the room shattered simultaneously, showering Olivia with glass. She ducked, protecting her belly with her arms. When she looked up, the house was empty again, save for wind and rain pouring through broken windows. Scrambling for safety, Olivia retreated to the hallway away from flying glass. She fumbled for the satellite phone Kane had provided, but before she could dial, headlights swept the drive. A car had arrived, not Bob or Kane coming to check on her, but a sleek sedan she recognized with sickening certainty. Jason had found her. He pounded on the front door, a voice carrying even over the storm. "I know you're in there, Olivia. You can't hide my child from me." Olivia backed toward the kitchen, seeking another exit. The restraining order meant nothing here, miles from help. The back door was her best option. She could reach the storage shed, barricade herself inside until the storm passed. Moving as quietly as possible, she eased through the kitchen. The door burst open before she reached it, not from Jason's assault, but blown inward by wind. Standing in the doorway was a woman in her 60s, soaked from the rain, her face a shock of recognition. "Olivia." The woman gasped. "My God, it's really you." Olivia stared at the stranger whose features mirrored her own. "Who?" "Rebecca Morgan. Your mother," the woman said, stepping inside and closing the door against the howling wind. "And we need to leave immediately. He's coming around the side of the house." As if on cue, Jason's voice called from alarmingly nearby. Olivia felt frozen between impossible revelations and immediate danger. Rebecca grabbed her arm. "The cellar. Now." They hurried toward a door Olivia had assumed led to a pantry. Rebecca yanked it open, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. "Hurry." Olivia hesitated only briefly before following her supposed mother down the stairs. Rebecca secured the heavy door behind them just as Jason's footsteps pounded through the kitchen above. In the flashlight's beam, Rebecca's face showed equal parts fear and wonder. "I never thought I'd see you again," she whispered. "Especially not here." When Eleanor called saying a pregnant woman named Olivia Morgan had bought the old place, she shook her head in disbelief. Questions exploded in Olivia's mind, but Jason's movements overhead kept her voice low. "You're really my mother, the one who gave me up." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. I had no choice. After what happened with my parents, she swallowed hard. This land isn't just land, Olivia. It has power. Power that's drawn to Morgan women for generations. Power that nearly destroyed us all. The floor above creaked as Jason searched room by room. Rebecca clutched Olivia's hands. Listen carefully. When my mother, Margaret, realized what was happening, she tried to protect me by sending me away. I was 17, pregnant with you. She and my father disappeared trying to contain what they'd awakened. She glanced upward. He can't find us here. This room doesn't appear on any house plans. But we need to handle your ex before I explain everything. As if summoned by her words, the cellar door rattled violently. I know you're down there, Jason shouted. Both of you, come out now. Rebecca remained eerily calm, guiding Olivia further into the cellar toward what appeared to be a solid stone wall. Pressing specific stones in sequence, she revealed a hidden passage. My father built escape routes throughout the property, she explained. Cold War paranoia had its uses. They hurried through the narrow tunnel as Jason's attempts to break down the cellar door grew more frantic. The passage sloped downward, the air growing cooler and damper. Where does this lead, Olivia asked, one hand protectively on her belly. To the stone circle, Rebecca answered. It's where the property's energy is strongest, where we'll be safest. This tunnel ended at another hidden door that opened into driving rain. Despite the darkness, Olivia recognized they'd emerged near the stone circle she'd visited earlier. Rebecca pulled her toward the center, positioning them within the ring of ancient stones. The key, she demanded urgently. You must have found it, or you wouldn't have been able to buy the property. Olivia hesitated, then produced the brass key from her pocket. Rebecca took it with reverent care, inserting it into the center stone, as Olivia had done earlier. This time the reaction was immediate and undeniable. The key sank fully into the stone, which began to emit a soft blue glow. The light spread to each surrounding stone until the entire circle was illuminated, creating a dome of shimmering energy that repelled the rain. Beneath their feet, the ground hummed with power that resonated through Olivia's body. Her child moved vigorously in response. What is this place, she whispered. A convergence point. Rebecca explained, her voice steadier now that they stood within the protected circle. Natural energy pathways in the earth meet here. My father studied it scientifically. My mother understood it intuitively. Their work combined could have changed agriculture forever, but they didn't respect the balance required. In the ethereal blue light, Rebecca looked both haunted and relieved. I've spent 30 years running from this place, she continued. From what happened, from what I am, what you are. The light intensified around them as a figure appeared at the edge of the trees. Jason, soaked and raging, a tire iron clutched in his hand. There you are, he snarled, stalking forward. You think some light show will stop me from taking what's mine? He charged the circle, only to be thrown backward as he hit the barrier of light. He landed hard, momentarily stunned. Rebecca gripped Olivia's shoulders. Listen to me. The land recognized you. It's why you were drawn here. Why your baby responds to this place. The Morgans have been caretakers for generations, but my parents tried to control the power instead of working with it. The consequences were devastating. Jason struggled to his feet, circling the barrier like a predator seeking weakness. Rebecca continued urgently. I was young and frightened when it all fell apart. I gave you up to protect you from this legacy, but you found your way back anyway. She smiled sadly. The land always calls its own. A thunderous crack interrupted as Jason smashed the tire iron against the barrier. The energy field flickered but held. We can't stay here forever, Olivia pointed out, eyeing Jason's increasingly frenzied attempts. No, Rebecca agreed, but we're not alone anymore. She raised her voice over the storm. Thomas. Now, from the trees emerged Sheriff Kane, weapon drawn. Jason Marks, he called out. You're in violation of a restraining order and trespassing on private property. Drop your weapon and put your hands up. Jason froze, calculating his options as Kane approached steadily. This doesn't concern you, Sheriff, Jason growled. That's my wife and my child. Ex-wife, Kane corrected calmly. And the restraining order says otherwise about your proximity rights. Now we can do this easy or hard, your choice. For a moment it seemed Jason might comply. Then with a roar of frustration, he lunged toward Kane. The sheriff sidestepped with surprising agility, using Jason's momentum to take him down hard. Within moments he had him cuffed and secured. You ladies all right, Kane called toward the glowing circle, his expression suggesting he was studiously ignoring the supernatural light show. We're fine, Sheriff Rebecca answered, removing the key from the center stone. The glow faded immediately, leaving them in ordinary darkness, pierced only by Kane's flashlight. As Kane led a cursing Jason to his cruiser, Rebecca turned to Olivia, her expression solemn in the dim light. There's so much more you need to know, she said quietly. About our family, about this land, about what's coming. Olivia placed both hands on her swollen belly, feeling her child settle as the energy field dissipated. The last hour had upended everything she'd believed about herself, yet somehow it felt right, pieces clicking into place rather than shattering apart. I'm ready to hear it all, she told the mother she'd never known she had. But first, let's go home. My daughter and I have waited long enough for answers. Through the rain, they walked back toward the house that had always been meant for them, 3 generations of Morgan women returning to the land that had called them home. Dawn broke over River Pine Ranch with tentative golden fingers illuminating the aftermath of the storm. Broken windows, scattered branches, and muddy footprints told the story of the previous night's chaos. Olivia stood on the porch, hands wrapped around a steaming mug, watching Rebecca move through the garden with practiced familiarity, despite 30 years' absence. The night had brought too many revelations for proper sleep. Jason was in custody, but Kane had warned he'd likely make bail by morning. More pressing was the woman who claimed to be her mother, a claim supported by the locket-identical features and an impossible knowledge of the property's secrets. My mother, Olivia thought. The words still felt foreign in her mind. Rebecca approached, wiping soil from her hands. The herb garden was my mother's pride. Some of these plants shouldn't have survived decades of neglect. The fact that they have, she let the observation hang between them. Olivia gestured toward the house. You should come inside. We have a lot to discuss. In the kitchen, Rebecca moved with the confidence of memory, finding cups and tea despite rearrangements. Olivia watched her carefully, searching for reflections of herself in the stranger's movements. I don't know where to begin, Rebecca admitted, settling at the table. How do you tell your daughter you abandoned her to protect her from a legacy you were too afraid to face? Start with what this place really is. Olivia's tone left no room for evasion. What happened last night in that stone circle wasn't normal. Rebecca nodded slowly. The Morgan land sits on what my father called a convergence point, a place where Earth's natural electromagnetic fields concentrate and intensify. His research showed these fields can dramatically affect plant growth, potentially solving food scarcity globally. The government funded his work throughout the Cold War. That's the scientific explanation, Olivia noted. But science doesn't explain glowing stones or protective barriers. Rebecca's smile held no humor. My father was a scientist who never accepted that some things defy conventional explanation. My mother, though, Margaret, understood the land had consciousness, not sentience exactly, but awareness. The tribe who lived here before European settlement knew this. They performed rituals at the stone circle for centuries before my ancestors acquired the land. But how does this connect to me, to us? Olivia pressed a hand to her active womb. The land chooses its caretakers. Rebecca's gaze fixed on Olivia's belly. Morgan women have always had a special connection to it. My mother could make anything grow. Plants responded to her touch, thrived under her care beyond any natural explanation. I showed similar abilities as a teenager, which frightened me. She traced the wood grain on the table, lost momentarily in memory. Then you were conceived and everything intensified. My pregnancy dreams were vivid conversations with ancestors I'd never met, visions of the land's past and potential futures. The energy changed me, fundamentally. Before Olivia could respond, a truck pulled into the driveway, Bob Mitchell arriving with supplies to repair the broken windows. His expression betrayed no surprise at seeing Rebecca. Ms. Morgan, he acknowledged with a nod. Been a while. Hello, Bob? Still watching over the place, I see. Rebecca's familiarity confirmed they knew each other from before. Bob assessed the damage with professional detachment. Sheriff Kane called about last night's excitement. Said your ex made quite an entrance. He glanced meaningfully at Olivia. Also mentioned he'll make bail by noon. Olivia's stomach tightened. That soon, Bob unloaded plywood sheets from his truck. We'll secure these windows properly. Buy you some time to figure out next steps. As they worked, Olivia noticed Bob and Rebecca exchanging glances laden with unspoken history. When Rebecca stepped away to collect more nails, Olivia confronted him directly. You knew who I was when I arrived, didn't you? That I'm a Morgan by blood. Bob measured a window frame before answering. Suspected, couldn't be certain. Not my place to say regardless. His weathered hands worked steadily hammering with precise strokes. But when a pregnant woman named Morgan buys this property for $1, certain possibilities present themselves. By mid-morning, the windows were secured, and Bob had departed, leaving mother and daughter to continue their conversation. Rebecca led Olivia to the study where bookshelves still held Jack Morgan's technical volumes and Margaret's botanical references. My father's research journals should still be here unless someone removed them, Rebecca muttered, scanning the shelves. There behind Principles of Agricultural Engineering. She retrieved a hidden lever that caused a section of shelving to swing outward, revealing a small safe. The combination, let me think. My birthday backwards. She spun the dial and the door clicked open. Inside lay several leather-bound journals, scientific instruments of unclear purpose, and a folded map, larger and more detailed than the one Olivia had found. This is everything, Rebecca explained, spreading the map across the desk. My father's complete research on the convergence point. The government never saw these records. He kept them hidden after they started asking the wrong kinds of questions. Her finger traced lines that radiated from the stone circle like spokes from a wheel. These are what he called energy pathways, lines along which the electromagnetic effect is strongest. Notice how they connect to water sources, certain mineral deposits, and the most fertile growing areas. Olivia studied the map with her IT analyst's eye for patterns. These intersections, they form a perfect geometric pattern. Sacred geometry, a voice interjected from the doorway. Maria Rodriguez stood there, a basket of herbs in her arms, silver hair pulled back in a severe braid that emphasized her indigenous features. My grandmother helped Jack Morgan map these lines before your father decided science was more important than wisdom. Rebecca's posture stiffened slightly. Maria, I didn't expect to see you here. The land told me a Morgan had returned. 2 now, Maria corrected, nodding toward Olivia. 3 counting the little one. She set her basket on a chair, approaching with dignified grace. I'm Maria Rodriguez. My family and yours have history stretching back generations. Olivia introduced herself, noting the easy familiarity with which Maria moved through the house. Another person who knew more about her home than she did. You look like your grandmother, Maria told Olivia, then turned to Rebecca. You should have come back sooner. The balance has been disturbed too long. Rebecca's jaw tightened. You know why I couldn't. Fear is a poor advisor, Maria replied simply. She addressed Olivia directly. Your grandfather was brilliant but arrogant. He believed the land's power could be harnessed, controlled, directed for human purposes. Your grandmother understood better that we are stewards, not masters. Their disagreement had consequences. What kind of consequences? Olivia asked. Maria and Rebecca exchanged loaded glances before Rebecca answered. In 1978, my father attempted to amplify the convergence energy using equipment he'd designed. He believed he could extend its agricultural benefits beyond the property boundaries. The experiment, her voice faltered. There was an accident, a fire at his laboratory. People died. The government terminated his funding, classified everything. He became obsessed after that, Maria continued, when Rebecca fell silent, determined to prove his theories. Meanwhile, the energy grew unstable, unpredictable. Margaret tried to restore balance through traditional methods I taught her, but Jack's interventions undermined her efforts. Olivia processed this information, connecting it to the journal entries she'd found. And Catherine, Rebecca was caught in the middle. I was 17 pregnant, terrified, Rebecca admitted. Strange things happened daily, objects moving by themselves, plants growing overnight, lights in the sky during storms. My father insisted it was breakthrough scientific phenomena. My mother feared we'd awaken something we couldn't control. I just wanted normalcy. She looked at Olivia with pain etched in every line of her face. When you were born, the energy reacted powerfully. The night of a terrible storm, similar to last night's, my parents performed some kind of ritual in the stone circle. I never saw them again. Just found you crying in your crib, surrounded by symbols drawn in ash. I panicked, took you to the nearest hospital in the next county, claimed I'd found you abandoned. She swallowed hard. Then I ran, as far as I could. The weight of this revelation settled between them, heavy with implications. Before Olivia could respond, her phone rang. Sheriff Kane, I wanted to warn you, Jason made bail 15 minutes ago. He's legally required to stay away from you, but Kane's concern was evident even through the phone connection. Just be vigilant. I've increased patrols past your property. After thanking him, Olivia relayed the news to the others. Maria's expression grew grave. The timing is not coincidental, she said cryptically. The land's energy is stirring after decades of dormancy. It draws back its caretakers, she nodded to Olivia and Rebecca, but also attracts those who would exploit it. We need to secure the property, Rebecca decided, suddenly businesslike. Are the boundary markers still in place? Most have been removed or obscured over time. Maria answered, they need restoration. At Olivia's confused look, Rebecca explained, my mother placed protective symbols at key points around the property line where the energy pathways intersect the boundaries. They help stabilize and contain the convergence energy. Without them, the effects can spill outward unpredictably. The three women spent the afternoon consulting Jack's maps and Margaret's journals, identifying where boundary markers needed restoration. Maria provided clay vessels containing mixtures of herbs, minerals, and symbolic objects to be placed at each location. As Olivia handled these materials, her child moved actively as if responding to their energy. Maria noticed her reaction. The little one already feels the connection, she observed. Morgan women are born with the gift. It will be stronger in her than in any generation before. How can you know that? Olivia asked. Maria's ancient eyes held mysteries deeper than her words. Because 3 generations of Morgan women are here together for the first time since the convergence was discovered. The land recognizes its own. As sunset approached, they prepared to place the first boundary marker at the property's eastern edge. Bob arrived unexpectedly as they were leaving the house, a rifle slung casually over his shoulder. Thought you might appreciate an extra set of eyes given your ex's release, he explained, falling into step beside them. Kane mentioned Westfield paid his bail personally. That's concerning. The revelation that Westfield and Jason had connected sent a chill through Olivia that had nothing to do with the evening air. Jason was dangerous enough alone. With Westfield's resources behind him, the threat multiplied significantly. At the eastern boundary, Maria directed the placement of the first marker, a clay vessel containing her herbal mixture, buried precisely where an energy pathway crossed the property line according to Jack's map. Rebecca carved specific symbols into a nearby tree, while Maria spoke words in her ancestral language. Olivia felt a subtle shift as the ritual completed, nothing visible but a change in the air's weight, a harmonizing of discordant frequencies she hadn't consciously perceived until their resolution. They proceeded to the southern boundary as twilight deepened into dusk. Bob maintained a vigilant perimeter, eyes constantly scanning the surrounding woods. The second marker placement produced a stronger sensation, a brief, gentle vibration beneath their feet, accompanied by a soft luminescence from the soil that faded quickly. At the western boundary, as Maria completed the ritual words, Olivia gasped as energy visibly rippled outward from the marker, briefly illuminating the property line like a golden thread, stretching north and south before fading from sight. It's working. Rebecca breathed wonder, replacing the tension that had marked her features all day. The land remembers. The northern boundary would complete the circuit, but darkness had fallen completely, making navigation more difficult. Bob advised waiting until morning, but Maria shook her head firmly. The cycle must be completed during a single sun's journey from first light to last light. The energy is already flowing. Leaving the circuit open would cause imbalance. They proceeded cautiously through the woods, Maria leading with surprising sureness despite her age and the limited illumination from their flashlights. The northern boundary lay beyond a small stream that had swollen with the previous night's rainfall. As they approached the crossing point, Bob suddenly raised his hand for silence, extinguishing his light. A moment later, Olivia heard what had alerted him. Voices coming from the direction they were headed, accompanied by the occasional flash of lights through the trees. Trespassers, Bob whispered. At least 2, maybe more. I'll check. Rebecca offered, surprisingly confident. This was my playground as a child. I know how to move silently through these woods. Before anyone could object, she slipped away into the darkness, vanishing with unsettling completeness. Minutes of tense waiting followed until she reappeared as suddenly as she'd gone. Jason and Westfield plus 2 men I don't recognize. They're at the north marker location, digging. Rebecca's expression was grim. They have equipment, professional-grade metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar. How could they know about the marker locations, Olivia wondered. Maria's eyes narrowed. The land has many secrets. Not all Morgan research stayed within the family. Your grandfather worked with government agencies, contractors. Westfield's father was a defense contractor in the 70s and 80s, Bob recalled. Had connections throughout the military-industrial complex. They retreated a safe distance to strategize. The final marker's placement couldn't wait until morning, but confrontation with Jason and Westfield carried obvious risk, especially given Olivia's advanced pregnancy. There's another approach, Maria suggested, a less direct path to the north boundary. It requires crossing the old cave system. Bob looked dubious. Those caves haven't been maintained in decades. Could be structurally unsound. They were built by my ancestors long before your government mapped them, Maria replied with quiet dignity. They will hold. She led them to an entrance concealed behind a growth of vines that parted with surprising ease at her touch. Stone steps descended into darkness, the air from below cool and mineral-scented. The caves proved to be an extensive network far larger than their external entrance suggested. Ancient carvings decorated the wall's symbols matching those on Margaret's journal and the boundary markers. At certain intersections, crystals embedded in the rock emitted a faint phosphorescence, providing just enough light to navigate by. These passages connected sacred sites long before property lines divided the land. Maria explained, her voice hushed in reverence. Your grandfather discovered them accidentally during his research, recognized their importance to the energy network. The tunnel system took them beneath the stream and eventually upward, emerging in a small clearing less than 50 yards from where Jason and Westfield were working. From their hidden vantage point, Olivia could see the men had excavated a significant hole, extracting core samples and scanning the surrounding area with sophisticated equipment. We need a distraction, Rebecca murmured, something to draw them away long enough to place the marker. Bob considered the situation tactically. I could circle around, make some noise to the east. Might draw them off briefly. Before they could implement this plan, Westfield's voice carried clearly through the night air, sharp with excitement. I'm getting readings consistent with Morgan's notes. Whatever's buried here is generating the same electromagnetic signature his research described. Jason appeared less impressed. I don't care about your science project, Westfield. You promised me leverage to get my wife and child back. And you'll have it, Westfield assured him. Once we control the energy source, we control the property regardless of legal ownership. Your ex-wife will have no choice but to negotiate. His tone turned calculating. A child raised with access to this power could be extraordinarily valuable. The naked greed in his voice sent rage coursing through Olivia. These men viewed her baby as a resource to be exploited, a means to access the land's power. We need to place the marker now, Maria insisted. Their digging is already disturbing the energy flow. Can you feel it? Olivia could, an uncomfortable sensation like static electricity raising the hair on her arms, accompanied by a faint but persistent ringing in her ears. Her child moved restlessly, responding to the disharmony. Bob made his decision. I'll create your distraction. Give me 5 minutes to get in position, then move fast. As he slipped away, Rebecca turned to Olivia, expression resolute. I ran from this responsibility once. I won't fail again. She squeezed her daughter's hand. Whatever happens, complete the circuit. Place the marker exactly where Maria shows you. Before Olivia could question this instruction, a series of loud crashes and shouts erupted from the eastern woods. Bob's distraction in action. It worked perfectly. Jason, Westfield, and their companions immediately moved toward the commotion, weapons drawn. Now Maria urged, leading them swiftly to the excavation site. The whole Westfield's team had dug, provided the perfect placement location. Maria quickly positioned the clay vessel, while Rebecca carved symbols into a nearby tree. Olivia stood guard, heart pounding, as she watched the woods where the men had disappeared. Maria began the ritual, words, her voice low, but carrying power that seemed to resonate with the earth itself. As she spoke, the clay vessel began to glow with golden light that intensified with each phrase. Olivia felt the energy building, a pressure in her ear, it was a tingling across her skin. Her child moved with unprecedented vigor, as if dancing to a rhythm only she could hear. The final words of the ritual triggered an immediate response. Golden light erupted from the vessel, shooting upward before arcing outward in 2 directions, connecting to the east and west markers they'd placed earlier. The entire property boundary illuminated briefly, a perfect rectangle of light visible for several heartbeats before fading. The completion had other effects. A wave of energy rippled outward from their position, stirring leaves and raising dust, despite the absence of wind. In the distance, shouts of alarm suggested Westfield's group had witnessed the phenomenon. We need to move, Rebecca urged. Back to the caves. They had nearly reached the hidden entrance when Jason's voice rang out behind them. Stop right there. His flashlight beam caught them in its glare, gun visible in his other hand. What the hell was that? What did you do? Westfield and the two unknown men emerged from the trees, seconds later, their expressions varying from anger to fascination. Extraordinary Westfield breathed, staring at the ground where the energy had manifested. Jack Morgan's theories were correct. He fixed his gaze on Olivia. My dear, you're sitting on a scientific discovery worth billions. Let's discuss your future rationally. There's nothing to discuss, Olivia replied coldly, instinctively stepping in front of Maria, the most vulnerable of their group. Jason's patience evaporated. Enough talking. He advanced toward Olivia, gun raised. You're coming with me, and we're going to have a long conversation about parental rights. Before he could reach her, a blinding flash erupted from the ground between them, the energy boundary they'd just established manifesting as a visible barrier. Jason staggered back, cursing in pain and surprise. The property is protected now, Maria stated, her small frame somehow imposing in the strange light. Those who mean harm to its caretakers cannot cross. Westfield's scientific curiosity overcame his caution. He approached the invisible line, carefully extending his hand. Unlike Jason, he encountered no resistance until he attempted to step across. The barrier flared to life, repelling him firmly, but without the painful shock Jason had experienced. Fascinating, he murmured. It appears the boundary recognizes intent. One of his associates attempted to circle around, approaching from another angle, but encountered the same resistance. The property had become a fortress, sealed against those who meant harm to its inhabitants. Jason's rage escalated. He raised his gun, aiming at Olivia. If I can't have my child, neither will you. The gunshot echoed through the night, but it wasn't from Jason's weapon. Bob Mitchell emerged from the shadows, rifle raised. Next one won't be a warning shot, he stated calmly. Sheriff's been notified. Your trespassing just became attempted murder. Jason hesitated, calculating his options, but Westfield had already made his decision. He retreated, gesturing for his associates to follow. This isn't finished, he called back. A property boundary won't stop legal proceedings. I have friends in every regulatory agency in the state. His threat hung in the air as they disappeared into the darkness. Jason, finding himself abandoned, lowered his weapon reluctantly. This doesn't change anything, Olivia. I'll see you in court. He backed away, following Westfield's path. Bob maintained his vigilant stance until certain they'd truly departed. Sheriff's actually 2 minutes out, he confirmed. Kane responded personally when I called in armed trespassers. Indeed, sirens became audible in the distance, approaching rapidly along the access road. The night's confrontation marked a turning point. While Sheriff Kane documented the trespassing incident, he couldn't see or detect the energy boundary that now protected the property, further evidence that the land's power manifested differently depending on awareness and intent. By morning, the immediate danger had passed, but longer-term threats loomed. Over coffee in the kitchen, Kane shared troubling news. Westfield's filed emergency petitions with 3 different agencies claiming the property poses environmental and public safety hazards. He's requesting immediate inspections and potential condemnation. Kane's expression conveyed his skepticism. It's harassment disguised as legal procedure, but it'll take time to fight. And Jason, Olivia asked the question she dreaded most. Kane's face darkened. He's filed for emergency custody evaluation, claiming your mental state makes you unfit, cited delusional behavior and unsafe living conditions. Judge Harmon will hear preliminary arguments next week. He's generally fair, but Kane hesitated. Westfield donated heavily to his last campaign. The systematic assault on her new life left Olivia reeling, but a strange calm settled over her as she placed her hand on her active womb. Her daughter seemed unbothered by the chaos, moving with contented energy that contradicted the external threats. They want what they can't understand, she realized aloud. The land, its power, my child's connection to it, they see resources to exploit rather than a legacy to protect. Rebecca, who had been unusually quiet since their return to the house, finally spoke. There's another option, a way to demonstrate the land's true value while neutralizing Westfield's claims. All eyes turned to her as she spread Jack Morgan's research journals on the table. My father was wrong about controlling the convergence energy, but he was right about its agricultural potential. His final unpublished research She tapped a specific journal outlined how the energy could create crops with extraordinary properties: drought resistance, cold tolerance, accelerated growth cycles. Properly documented by contemporary scientists, this could transform the property from a private curiosity to a resource of national importance. Olivia grasped the strategy immediately. Environmental agencies can't condemn land that might solve food security challenges, and Westfield couldn't develop luxury homes on a site designated for agricultural research. Exactly, Rebecca nodded. But we need credible scientific documentation quickly. I might have a solution, Bob offered. Dr. Alan Harris isn't just a historian. Before retiring to teach local history, he was a respected agricultural scientist, worked for the USDA for 30 years. Maria, who had been silently preparing herbal tea, added her perspective. The academic approach has merit, but the land requires balance. Science alone created the original problem. Tradition alone cannot address contemporary threats. The Morgan women must find the middle path. Olivia found herself at the center of decisions she never anticipated making when purchasing a $1 property. Yet something fundamental had shifted within her since completing the boundary ritual. The connection to the land, to her unborn child, to the generations of Morgan women before her, it provided clarity amidst chaos. We pursue both paths, she decided. Scientific validation and traditional stewardship. Not opposing approaches, but complementary ones, just as my grandparents should have done. The plan took shape rapidly. Dr. Harris arrived that afternoon, his scholarly excitement barely contained when presented with Jack Morgan's original research. While initially skeptical of energy pathways and convergence points, the empirical data in Jack's meticulous records gave him pause. These growth rates defy conventional explanation. He admitted studying charts documenting plant development in the 1970s and the nutritional density measurements. If accurate, these would represent a significant advancement in crop science. Bob helped establish testing stations at key locations around the property following the energy pathway map. Under Maria and Rebecca's guidance, Olivia planted experimental gardens using both modern techniques and traditional methods documented in Margaret's journals. Within days, the results became undeniable. Seeds planted along energy pathways germinated in hours rather than days. Seedlings exhibited growth rates 3 times normal expectations. Soil samples revealed mineral compositions and microbial activity, unlike anything in Dr. Harris's extensive experience. These findings alone are publication-worthy, he declared, examining a tomato plant that had produced fruit in just 11 days from seed. But the electromagnetic readings? He shook his head in wonder. They correlate perfectly with growth optimization. Your grandfather was decades ahead of contemporary agricultural science. Olivia leveraged her IT background to establish monitoring systems that documented the phenomena continuously. She created a secure database compiling historical records, current observations, and real-time measurements, irrefutable evidence of the property's unique properties. As scientific validation progressed, Maria taught Olivia and Rebecca traditional methods of working with the land's energy rituals that maintained balance, while directing growth practices that honored the relationship between caretaker and earth. The convergence of approaches yielded results exceeding everyone's expectations. Plants grown with both scientific optimization and traditional blessings produced fruits of extraordinary size, flavor, and nutritional value. Soil regenerated at unprecedented rates. Even weather patterns seemed to respond, bringing gentle, nourishing rain rather than destructive storms. Olivia's pregnancy advanced in harmony with the flourishing land. Her physical discomforts diminished as she spent more time working in the gardens. Her dreams filled with visions of ancestors tending the same soil, wisdom passing through bloodlines alongside the mysterious affinity for the convergence energy. The land is preparing for your daughter's arrival, Maria observed one evening as they harvested herbs that had reached maturity in just days. She will be born into balance unlike any Morgan before her. The property's transformation didn't go unnoticed. Local farmers began stopping by, initially skeptical, but increasingly impressed by the visible results. Several volunteered equipment and labor, forming impromptu working parties that accelerated the rehabilitation of fields long left fallow. Word spread beyond River Pine. Agricultural specialists from state universities requested permission to observe. Environmental scientists noted increased biodiversity surrounding the property as if the balanced energy radiated outward healing landscapes beyond the boundaries. This growing attention brought complications. Westfield intensified his legal campaign, filing injunctions to halt what he termed unauthorized agricultural experimentation. Jason made increasingly desperate attempts to contact Olivia, alternating between threats and pleas. Most concerning was the appearance of unmarked vehicles periodically parked at the property's edge. Government observers, Dr. Harris suspected, drawn by the same potential that had funded Jack Morgan's original research. The pattern is repeating, Rebecca warned during a quiet moment in the garden. My father's work attracted attention he couldn't control. We need to be more careful about who accesses this knowledge. Olivia understood the concern, but saw a critical difference. We're not seeking to control or weaponize this energy. We're demonstrating its natural purpose, abundance, regeneration, balance. She gestured toward the flourishing fields visible from their position. This isn't a secret to hoard, but a model to share with appropriate protections. The preliminary hearing regarding Jason's custody petition arrived faster than anticipated. Olivia entered the courthouse 8 months pregnant, flanked by Rebecca and Sheriff Kane, who had volunteered to testify regarding Jason's behavior. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Harmon reviewed the filings, his expression inscrutable. Jason sat with his attorney, projecting concerned fatherhood rather than the violent man Olivia had fled. When proceedings began, Jason's lawyer painted a troubling picture, a mentally unstable woman who had fled proper medical care to live in isolation, engaging in folk rituals and supernatural beliefs that demonstrated unfitness for motherhood. Olivia's attorney countered with documentation of Jason's violent history, the active restraining order, and testimony from Sheriff Kane regarding the trespassing incident. Dr. Harris provided expert testimony about the legitimate agricultural research being conducted at River Pine Ranch, emphasizing its scientific validity and potential importance. As arguments concluded, Judge Harmon addressed Jason directly. Mr. Marks, your documented history of domestic violence significantly undermines your petition. The court finds insufficient evidence of maternal unfitness to warrant emergency intervention. His gaze shifted to Olivia. However, Mrs. Morgan, the court does have concerns about prenatal care, given your remote location. I'm ordering monthly wellness checks by county services until the child's birth. The partial victory left Olivia relieved but wary. The custody issue remained unresolved, merely delayed until after her daughter's birth. And the judge's order meant regular visitors to the property, potential security vulnerabilities in their carefully maintained boundary. Leaving the courthouse, they encountered Westfield in the hallway, his expression revealing nothing of his thoughts. Congratulations on today's ruling, Mrs. Morgan. Temporary victories are still victories after all. His smile never reached his eyes. I've just filed environmental impact review requests with the EPA and USDA. Your agricultural research will receive thorough scrutiny very soon. He departed without waiting for response, confidence in every step. The encounter cemented Olivia's understanding of the challenges ahead. Westfield viewed legal proceedings as merely one avenue of attack among many. His resources allowed simultaneous pressure from multiple directions: environmental regulations, custody disputes, zoning ordinances, whatever might separate the Morgan women from their ancestral land. Returning to River Pine Ranch that evening, Olivia found Maria and Bob deep in conversation with an unexpected visitor. A tall, distinguished Native American man introduced as Samuel Blackhawk, chairman of the tribal council, whose ancestors had first recognized the land's special properties. We've been monitoring the energy shifts, he explained, once introductions were complete. The boundary restoration was felt by sensitive members of our community. It's been generations since the convergence point achieved such balance. His presence brought new dimensions to their understanding. The tribe possessed records dating back centuries, documenting the land's cycles, periods of dormancy, followed by awakening, always connected to the presence of certain bloodlines. The convergence has patterns, Samuel explained, examining Margaret's journals with knowing eyes. It strengthens with 3 generations of caretakers present: grandmother, mother, daughter. The fact that all 3 Morgan women are here now, with a 4th generation soon to arrive. His expression grew solemn. This hasn't happened within recorded history. What does it mean? Olivia asked, hands resting protectively on her belly. Samuel exchanged glances with Maria before answering. Legend speaks of a complete awakening, the convergence energy expanding beyond its boundaries, affecting larger ecosystems. Properly guided, it brings healing, abundance, fertility. unbalanced. He left the alternative unspoken. That's what Westfield wants Rebecca realized. Not just the property, but the awakened energy. Her father's journals contain theoretical models for large-scale energy extraction. Samuel nodded gravely. Such attempts would destabilize patterns established over thousands of years. The consequences would extend far beyond this valley. The tribal council offered alliance combining their ancestral knowledge with Morgan family stewardship and contemporary science to protect the convergence through its awakening phase. Samuel also brought practical assistance, legal experts specializing in indigenous land rights, who could challenge Westfield's regulatory attacks, and tribal members skilled in traditional agriculture to expand their experimental gardens. That night, as a full moon illuminated the property, Olivia stood in the stone circle with Rebecca and Maria, participating in a ritual older than any written record. Samuel led tribal elders in songs that resonated with the earth beneath their feet, vibrations that harmonized with the quickening life in Olivia's womb. The convergence energy responded gentle pulses of golden light, tracing patterns across the ground, illuminating the network of pathways throughout the property. For the first time, Olivia could see what Margaret and Jack had discovered, what had driven both scientific inquiry and spiritual connection across generations. It wasn't power to be harnessed, but a relationship to be honored, the land offering abundance in exchange for stewardship, knowledge freely given rather than extracted. As the ritual reached its culmination, Olivia felt her daughter shift decidedly lower in her pelvis, the first sign that birth approached. The sensation coincided with a surge of energy through the stone circle, as if the land itself recognized the imminence of new life. Maria noticed immediately. "The little one prepares her arrival," she murmured. "Earlier than expected, but the convergence has its own timing." Rebecca squeezed her daughter's hand, eyes bright with unshed tears. "This time I'll stay. I promise." The night's ceremony concluded, but its effects lingered, a deepened connection between the Morgan women and their ancestral land, a strengthening of the boundary that protected their work, and a growing sense that larger forces were converging alongside the energy beneath their feet. As Olivia prepared for bed, her phone chimed with a severe weather alert, a massive storm system approaching, expected to reach River Pine by the following evening. The forecast called for high winds, potential flooding, and prolonged power outages. Bob called moments later, his typical practicality tinged with unusual concern. "This storm's tracking oddly. Meteorologists are puzzled by its sudden intensification and directional shifts, almost like it's being drawn here specifically." Through her bedroom window, Olivia could see the distant stone circle, still faintly luminous under the moonlight, pulsing in rhythm that matched her daughter's movements. The convergence awakening her child, preparing for birth, and now a powerful storm approaching, three forces moving towards simultaneous culmination. She understood with sudden clarity that everything, her discovery of River Pine Ranch, her pregnancy, Rebecca's return, the scientific documentation, the tribal alliance, even Westfield's opposition, had been building toward whatever would happen when these elements combined. The true test of Morgan stewardship wasn't just protecting the land from exploitation, but guiding the convergence through its awakening while bringing new life into the world, a challenge her grandmother had faced alone and her mother had fled. Olivia placed both hands on her belly, feeling her daughter respond with vigorous movement. "We'll face it together, little one. All of us." The Morgan women are finally home. Morning dawned gray and oppressive over River Pine Ranch, the air unnaturally still charged with anticipation. Meteorologists across 3 states tracked the approaching storm system with growing concern, its behavior defying computer models and historical patterns. The National Weather Service had upgraded their advisory to a severe storm warning, with River Pine County directly in the projected path. Olivia stood on the porch watching distant lightning illuminate the horizon, one hand pressed against her lower back, where persistent discomfort had settled overnight. The baby had dropped significantly, creating pressure that made sleep impossible. 9 days before her due date, her body was preparing for labor with increasing urgency. Bob's truck rumbled up the drive, followed by Thomas Kane's sheriff's cruiser and 2 tribal council vehicles. The impending storm had accelerated their preparations, bringing allies together in shared purpose. Kane approached first, his usual stoic expression betraying underlying concern. "Got reports of Westfield's people setting up equipment along county roads surrounding your property, claiming they're conducting environmental monitoring, but positioning suggests they're creating a perimeter." Bob unloaded weatherproofing supplies from his truck bed, I reinforced the generator shed and topped off the fuel. Should give you power for a week if the lines go down. His weathered hands moved with deliberate efficiency, organizing materials with the precision of his engineering background. But this storm, something ain't natural about it. Never seen barometric pressure drop this rapidly without a hurricane. Samuel Blackhawk joined them, accompanied by 4 tribal elders. The energy awakening is drawing atmospheric power. He confirmed, gesturing toward the stone circle where a faint luminescence remained visible despite daylight. The convergence seeks balance through electrical discharge. The storm and your child's birth are connected, the land preparing for both arrivals simultaneously. Rebecca emerged from the house carrying steaming mugs, her face drawn from a sleepless night spent studying Margaret's final journal entries. My mother documented similar weather patterns before major energy shifts. She believed the convergence uses lightning as a conductor, channeling power through natural pathways. Her expression darkened. It's what my father tried to replicate artificially. The attempt cost lives. While the others secured windows and moved essential equipment to higher ground, Maria led Olivia through the house, preparing birth supplies with calm efficiency. Modern medical equipment and shared space with traditional herbs and ceremonial objects, the dual approach that had characterized their work with the land now applied to Olivia's impending delivery. The little one will come with the storm, Maria stated with quiet certainty, preparing a tincture of herbs harvested from plants grown along energy pathways. Her timing is the land's timing. A sharp contraction tightened across Olivia's abdomen, stronger than the practiced contractions she'd experienced for weeks. She breathed through it, cataloging its intensity and duration with analytical detachment, still preparatory rather than active labor. But progression was unmistakable. Maria noticed immediately. The beginning, she nodded. We have hours yet, just as the storm does. By mid-afternoon, cloud cover had thickened to premature twilight. Wind began rising in unpredictable gusts that rattled windows and sent debris skittering across the yard. Sheriff Kane's radio crackled with emergency updates. County roads already flooding, power outages reported in neighboring towns. Emergency services stretched thin across multiple developing situations. Kane pocketed his radio with reluctant resolution. I've got to get back to the station. Coordinating evacuation of flood-prone areas, his gaze swept over the preparations underway at the ranch. You should consider leaving too. Valley behind you creates a funnel effect for flash flooding. Rebecca interjected firmly. The safest place for any Morgan woman in labor is here on this land. The energy boundary we restored will provide protection beyond physical barriers. Kane's skepticism was evident, but years in law enforcement had taught him when arguments were futile. I'll leave Deputy Wilson at the property entrance. He's got medical training if needed. His expression softened slightly as he addressed Olivia directly. Good luck with the little one. As Kane departed, Dr. Alan Harris arrived, his compact car struggling through increasingly treacherous road conditions. The academic's excitement overrode weather concerns. He'd been monitoring sensor readings from the experimental gardens, remotely witnessing unprecedented activity as the storm approached. The electromagnetic signatures are off the charts, he reported, unpacking monitoring equipment from waterproof cases. Plants in the test plots are exhibiting growth acceleration, structural changes, nutrient production, unlike anything documented in scientific literature. He paused, scientific enthusiasm momentarily eclipsed by human concern, as he noticed Olivia's posture during a contraction. You're in labor. Early stages, she confirmed, forcing herself to maintain normal movement despite increasing discomfort. Still time before things intensify. Harris exchanged glances with Maria, clearly recalibrating his expectations for the day's research. I've brought portable medical equipment as well. My first doctorate was in medicine before I specialized in agricultural science. Their circle of support had assembled organically. Science and tradition, modern medicine and ancient wisdom. Multiple generations united in purpose despite the gathering storm. Olivia felt the weight of confluence pressing upon them, too many significant events converging for mere coincidence. By late afternoon, the storm's outer bands reached River Pine Ranch. Rain lashed horizontally against windows. Wind howled through trees, branches snapping with reports like gunfire. The property's boundary glowed faintly visible during lightning flashes, energy responding to atmospheric electricity. Olivia's contractions established a rhythm, still manageable but unmistakably progressing. 8 minutes apart, 45 seconds duration, increasing intensity with each occurrence. She paced the main floor, instinctively seeking movement rather than stillness, while Rebecca and Maria prepared the birthing area upstairs. Samuel and the tribal elders maintained ceremonial fires in strategic locations, despite the downpour, ancient practices designed to stabilize energy fluctuations during convergence events. Their chants carried through the storm's voice, creating counterpoint to thunder and wind. Bob monitored structural integrity and emergency systems with professional focus, reinforcing vulnerable points with practiced efficiency. Dr. Harris divided his attention between Olivia's medical monitoring and the sensor network recording the convergence's effects. Deputy Wilson radioed periodic updates from the property entrance, county roads becoming impassable, emergency services, overwhelmed communications growing sporadic as cell towers lost power. More concerning were his reports of vehicles matching Westfield's fleet and attempting alternate approaches to the property only to be turned back by washed-out bridges and fallen trees. The storm itself seemed to be protecting them, channeling its destructive force selectively to maintain their isolation while preserving the ranch structures. Lightning struck with peculiar precision, never hitting the house or outbuildings, but repeatedly striking the stone circle, each impact sending visible pulses along underground energy pathways. As twilight surrendered to full darkness, power lines finally succumbed to wind damage. The ranch's emergency generator activated automatically, maintaining essential services, while most of the county descended into blackout conditions. Olivia's labor intensified with the storm's fury. 5 minutes between contractions, 60 seconds duration. The analytical part of her mind continued documenting progress even as her body demanded increasing focus on the physical experience. She had migrated upstairs to the prepared birthing room, the same room where she'd found the locket connecting her to Catherine, the room that would now welcome her daughter's arrival. Rebecca supported her through each contraction with surprising competence, demonstrating techniques Maria had taught her: pressure points, positional adjustments, rhythmic vocalization. Between them, they created stability despite the chaos surrounding the house. Outside, the storm reached unprecedented intensity. Weather stations across the region recorded wind speeds approaching hurricane force, rainfall accumulations breaking historical records, barometric pressure dropping to levels typically associated with major tropical systems. At the property's boundary, more troubling developments emerged. Deputy Wilson's final radio transmission reported multiple vehicles approaching from different directions, simultaneously coordinated incursion attempts, leveraging emergency conditions to bypass normal restrictions. His transmission cut off mid-sentence communications equipment, finally succumbing to storm damage. Samuel reported these developments with grave concern. Westfield would not risk such dangerous conditions without significant motivation. The convergence energy must be manifesting detectable effects beyond our boundaries. His expression reflected ancestral wisdom facing modern threats. Throughout history, power has attracted those who would control rather than steward. Bob checked his rifle with grim determination. Wilson was a good man. I'll check on him. His weathered face betrayed no fear of the conditions awaiting him outside. Before he could depart, Maria intervened with unexpected authority. The boundary will not admit those with harmful intent. Your place is here where protection will soon be most needed. She nodded toward the birthing room. The moment approaches when all guardians must stand together. Olivia's labor had entered transition phase, contractions coming 3 minutes apart, lasting 90 seconds intensity, requiring complete concentration. Her world narrowed to rhythms of pain and release, breath and sound, the encouraging voices of her mother and Maria guiding her through each wave. The convergence energy responded to her labor with visible manifestations throughout the house: lights fluctuating independent of power supply, objects vibrating subtly, the air itself seeming to thicken and pulse with each contraction. Dr. Harris monitored both mother and energy phenomena with growing amazement. The electromagnetic readings correlate perfectly with contraction patterns. He observed scientific curiosity temporarily overriding clinical focus. It's as if the land itself is participating in the birth process. A particularly powerful contraction coincided with a direct lightning strike on the stone circle. The resulting thunder shook the house to its foundation as energy surged visibly through the floor walls and ceiling, golden light tracing patterns that matched the property's mapped pathways. Olivia emerged from the contraction's grip to find the room transformed. The boundaries between physical reality and energy manifestation had thinned dramatically. Translucent figures now occupied the room's periphery, observers From beyond conventional perception, their features suggesting Morgan ancestors spanning generations. Among them stood two particularly distinct presences, a dignified woman in 1950s dress, whose face matched photographs of Margaret Morgan, and beside her a tall man with intense eyes recognizable as Jack Morgan from historical records. They watched the unfolding scene with expressions combining concern and hope, their presence neither threatening nor intrusive, simply witnessing a pivotal moment in their family's continuum. Rebecca gasped, clearly perceiving the same phenomena. Mother, father. Her voice cracked with emotion long suppressed. The apparitions offered no verbal response, but Margaret's figure moved closer to Olivia, placing ethereal hands above her swollen belly in a gesture of blessing. The sensation manifested physically warmth spreading through Olivia's abdomen, momentarily easing the labor's intensity. Downstairs, a commotion interrupted the extraordinary moment. Voices raised in confrontation, footsteps heavy with urgency. Samuel appeared at the doorway, expression grave. Westfield and Jason have breached the perimeter, he reported. With armed men. Somehow they've overcome the boundary's resistance. Maria's ancient eyes narrowed in understanding. The boundary recognizes bloodline connection above intent. Jason claims the unborn child is his. The protection cannot fully exclude him during birth, the moment when bloodline energy flows most openly. The tactical implications crystallized immediately. Westfield had orchestrated this moment, deliberately exploiting Jason's biological connection to circumvent protections, while emergency conditions prevented conventional intervention. Bob appeared behind Samuel, rifle held with veteran's confidence. Harris and I will secure the lower floor. His weathered face betrayed no fear, only resolute determination. They'll reach the birthing room only by coming through us. Another contraction claimed Olivia's attention completely, this one accompanied by unmistakable urge to push. The external threats receded temporarily behind primal imperative, her body demanding complete focus on bringing life forth. Between contractions, reality fractured into parallel awareness, the intensely physical experience of advanced labor alongside fragmented perception of events unfolding throughout the house. Shouted confrontation downstairs. Samuel and the elders forming ceremonial barrier at the staircase. Bob and Harris establishing defensive positions. Rebecca and Maria maintaining protective space around her birthing process. Through it all, the ancestral presences remained observers whose existence transcended physical constraints, witnesses to continuation of bloodline and legacy. Lightning struck the house directly for the first time, not damaging the structure, but instead energizing it, sending power surging through construction materials that Jack Morgan had apparently designed with such conductivity in mind. The entire building briefly glowed from within, electrical pathways mirroring the land's energy convergence. In that illuminated moment, Westfield and his men gained entry to the ground floor. Jason among them, their shapes visible through temporarily transparent flooring. 5 armed figures moved with tactical precision, clearly prepared for resistance. Westfield carried specialized equipment, measuring devices that registered the energy manifestations with blinking indicators and digital readouts. The fascinating evolutionary energy signature has exceeded all projections. Westfield's voice carried clearly through the momentarily permeable boundaries between floors. Imagine applications once properly harvested, agricultural monopoly, pharmaceutical patents, weapons potential. His tone held the calculating enthusiasm of exploitation, masked as progress. Your father understood the possibilities, Rebecca. He just lacked modern technology and corporate infrastructure. Jason showed no interest in Westfield's scientific enthusiasm. Where is she? His demand focused solely on personal possession. I want what's mine. The pushing phase of Olivia's labor intensified beyond distraction. Contractions merged into nearly continuous pressure, her body working with autonomous purpose toward birth. Maria directed her efforts with ancient knowledge, positioning for optimal delivery, while Rebecca provided physical and emotional support. The baby's head crowned during a powerful contraction that sent energy spiraling visibly around the room, connecting Olivia to both physical and ethereal presences. Margaret's apparition placed transparent hands alongside Maria's physical ones, guiding her granddaughter's child toward first breath. Downstairs, confrontation escalated. Bob's voice rang out in warning, followed by a single rifle shot purposefully directed into floor, rather than human target. Final alert. before deadly force became necessary. The threat and violence catalyzed reaction from the convergence energy itself. The house trembled, not from storm, but from power rising through foundations, concentrations of light, gathering at critical structural points. The ancestral figures became more defined, more present, no longer merely observing, but actively engaged in the unfolding drama. The border between worlds has thinned beyond precedent, Maria observed with reverent awe. The ancestors stand with us. Another pushing contraction brought the baby's head fully into view, a moment of crowning that coincided with Westfield's men breaching the upper floor defenses. The door splintered inward as Olivia worked to deliver her daughter's shoulders external threat and miraculous emergence occurring simultaneously. Jason entered first expression, transforming from aggressive determination to shocked disbelief at the scene before him. Olivia in final stage of childbirth, surrounded by swirling energy manifestations and translucent ancestral figures. The moment suspended in perfect convergence, stormbirth energy awakening, and human conflict all reaching crescendo together. Lightning struck the house again, power flowing through structure with intelligent direction rather than destructive force. The energy coalesced around Olivia and her emerging child, creating barrier that prevented further advancement by the intruders. No man may approach the birth of a Morgan daughter uninvited, Maria stated with authority that transcended her physical stature. The land's law supersedes human intrusion. The energy barrier intensified with each push, becoming opaque golden light that obscured Olivia which from Jason's view, while permitting Rebecca and Maria to continue their birthing assistance. Westfield pushed forward with scientific instruments, extended his expression, revealing obsessive fascination overriding caution. Extraordinary. His monitoring equipment sparked and smoked in the energy field. We must document this phenomenon. His focus remained entirely on the energy, rather than the human event at its center. With final tremendous effort, Olivia delivered her daughter, completely tiny body emerging into Maria's waiting hands, amid surge of energy that manifested as blinding light filling the entire room. The baby's first cry coincided with thunder that shook the house to its foundations. The convergence culminated in that precise moment, newborn's cry, storm's fury, energy's peak, all synchronized in perfect harmony. The boundary between physical and ethereal realities dissolved completely, allowing Margaret and Jack Morgan to materialize with unprecedented clarity. Margaret's apparition approached Westfield, her expression combining sadness and stern judgment. You follow my husband's path of control rather than stewardship. The consequences extend beyond your comprehension. Her form grew more luminous with each word. This power exists in relationship, not subjugation. Jack's apparition showed equal regret. I made your mistake when seeking to harness what must remain in balance. The cost was devastating. His transparent gaze held Westfield's with intensity that transcended death itself. Some knowledge is not meant for exploitation. The combined ancestral presence expanded outward, forcing Jason and Westfield's team backward. The golden energy that had surrounded the birthing process now filled the entire upper floor, its boundaries expanding with each of the newborn's cries. Jason made final desperate lunge toward Olivia and the baby, only to be physically repelled by force that lifted him off his feet and propelled him backward into his companions. The ancestors stand with their descendants, Maria intoned. The convergence has chosen its new caretakers. The storm outside reached impossible intensity, wind and rain and lightning combining in symphonic fury centered precisely over the property. The house itself became conductor channeling energy rather than suffering damage, its structure incorporating protections Jack Morgan had apparently designed decades earlier. In the birthing room, Olivia held her daughter for the first time, tiny perfect form against her skin, newborn instinctively nuzzling toward first nursing. The infant's eyes opened with awareness beyond newborn capability, fixing directly on the ethereal figures of her ancestors, with apparent recognition. The child bridges generations, Maria observed with reverence. 4 Morgan women now connected to this land, past, present, and future unified. Rebecca watched through tears of wonder, maternal grandmother, witnessing miraculous continuation of bloodline she had once feared extinct. Our family's circle restored, she whispered, reaching tentative hand toward her mother's apparition in reconciliation long overdue. Downstairs, Westfield regrouped with calculating determination despite the supernatural display. Military applications alone would be worth billions. His focus remained unchanged despite overwhelming evidence that the energy remained beyond his comprehension or control. We need to secure the child for observation and testing. Jason's motivation reflected simpler possession. That's my daughter. I have paternal rights regardless of your scientific agenda. Their conflict of purpose created momentary distraction, allowing Bob and Harris to establish defensive position outside the birthing room. Samuel and the tribal elders formed second barrier, maintaining ceremonial chants that seemed to stabilize the ancestral manifestations. The storm peaked with fury beyond meteorological explanation, tornado-force winds circling the property in protective pattern, floodwaters flowing around rather than through the ranch boundaries, lightning striking in precise rhythm, matching the newborn's heartbeat. Within this chaos, Olivia experienced profound clarity, understanding flowing through her with each moment of connection to her daughter. The legacy she had unknowingly inherited, the responsibility, now fully accepted the bloodline's purpose in maintaining balance between worlds. This child will never be your laboratory specimen, Olivia stated with quiet authority that somehow carried over storm and conflict. Her eyes met Westfield's with unwavering certainty. Nor will this land become your resource extraction project. The newborn in her arms emitted soft coo that synchronized with energy pulse visible through entire house, golden light expanding outward from mother and child, pushing intruders back with gentle but irresistible force. The land's response to danger intensified beyond previous manifestations. Floorboards rippled like water beneath Westfield and Jason's feet. Walls became temporarily permeable, allowing glimpses of energy pathways extending throughout property. Ancestral figures multiplied, not just Margaret and Jack now, but generations of Morgans, stretching back through centuries, forming unified presence that filled the house with palpable intention. This place stands between worlds, Samuel explained, his voice carrying ancient knowledge. The convergence creates gateway that must remain balanced. Your interference threatens more than you comprehend. The tribal elder's warning came seconds too late. Westfield activated device clearly designed to measure and potentially capture energy technology sophisticated beyond conventional science, likely developed from Jack Morgan's classified research obtained through his father's defense industry connections. The machine hummed with increasing intensity, drawing convergence energy toward collection arrays. The effect on the ancestral manifestations was immediate and disturbing, their forms destabilizing expressions showing pain and resistance. The house itself seemed to groan in protest structure, vibrating dangerously. The balance breaks, Maria cried in alarm. He disrupts patterns established over millennia. Even Jason recognized the danger, backing away from Westfield, with dawning comprehension that forces beyond human control were being provoked. What are you doing? His demand went unheeded as Westfield adjusted controls with obsessive focus. The machine's pitch increased beyond audible range, creating pressure sensation that popped ears and vibrated teeth. Energy visibly flowed into collection chamber, golden light, compressing unnaturally, forming unstable concentration. The newborn responded before any adult could intervene. Her cries shifted to distinct tonal pattern, matching the ancestral chants Samuel's people had maintained throughout the storm. Her tiny hands reached outward, fingers splayed as if conducting unseen orchestra. Responding to this impossible directive, the compressed energy reversed flow erupting from Westfield's device with explosive force that knocked him backward without harming the machine itself. The released power restored ancestral manifestations to previous clarity while simultaneously strengthening the energy boundary throughout the property. Technology alone cannot control what exists in a relationship. Margaret's apparition stated, her voice stronger than previously, vibrating with authority of generations. The convergence chooses its caretakers through bloodline and intention aligned with balance. The house shook violently as energy redistributed properly through established pathways. Outside, the storm's patterns shifted intensity, maintaining but organization changing, from chaotic destruction to structured power lightning, forming grid pattern precisely matching underground energy network. Jack's apparition approached his daughter with regret etched in ethereal features. I failed to respect the balance, pursuing control rather than partnership. His form flickered with emotion transcending death. The land needs Morgan women more than Morgan men. We bring force without nurturing, dominance without relationship. Rebecca reached toward her father's apparition, decades of abandonment, issues resolving in moment of understanding. You tried to protect what you didn't fully understand. We all did. The convergence of generations living and ancestral created momentary suspension where past errors and future possibilities hung in perfect tension. Within this balanced moment, clarity emerged for all present. Westfield's expression shifted from scientific obsession to genuine awe as comprehensive understanding finally penetrated his exploitation mindset. "It's alive," he whispered, monitoring equipment forgotten in his hands. "The entire property, it's a single living system." The revelation came too late to change established momentum. The machine he had activated continued drawing energy, despite its creator's shifting intention, technology operating beyond human control once engaged. Components overheated, casing melting, while collection chamber glowed with dangerously compressed power. "It's going critical." Harris recognized with scientific certainty, the containment field can't handle energy of this magnitude. The impending catastrophe galvanized even Jason toward protective action rather than selfish agenda. "Get everyone out." His warning reflected first unselfish impulse he had demonstrated. Maria shook her head with ancient certainty. Moving Olivia and child now would break connection, maintaining what balance remains. Their bloodline stabilizes the convergence during awakening. The storm outside reached impossible intensity. Tornado force winds circling the property in protective pattern, while lightning struck Westfield's machine repeatedly, energy attempting to reclaim what had been artificially captured. Rebecca positioned herself between the failing technology and Olivia's birthing bed, maternal protection, transcending personal safety. "Whatever happens, we face it as Morgan women together this time." The machine's failure progressed beyond prevention, component meltdown, releasing compressed energy in cascading waves that rippled visible distortion through surrounding air. Westfield attempted emergency shutdown procedures without success, scientific arrogance finally confronting forces beyond technological control. At crisis point, the newborn again demonstrated connection, transcending her minutes of life experience. Her cries shifted to harmonics, matching property's energy frequency, perfectly tiny body glowing with golden light, identical to convergence manifestations. The infant's resonance created pathway directing released energy upward rather than outward, artificial container failing while natural conductor engaged. The house structure itself participated, materials channeling power through design features Jack Morgan had incorporated decades earlier, anticipating catastrophic energy events. Lightning struck the roof repeatedly, completing circuit between failing machine and natural atmospheric discharge. The resulting energy transfer manifested as luminescent column extending from where Westfield stood through ceiling and roof, connecting directly to storm center above. For a suspended moment, Westfield himself became conductor, human body channeling, convergence energy safely outward, rather than allowing destructive release throughout structure. His expression showed transcendent understanding, replacing exploitation as power flowed through him. "Some gifts aren't meant to be owned, only honored," he gasped through experience that transformed rather than destroyed him. The admission came seconds before lightning completed the circuit electromagnetic pulse, disabling his equipment permanently while leaving human participants unharmed. The crisis resolution shifted energy dynamics throughout property. Ancestral manifestations stabilized their forms, achieving clarity beyond previous appearance. The storm organization transformed from destructive chaos to structured rhythm, maintaining intensity while channeling power constructively. In birthing room, Olivia experienced profound connection, transcending physical boundaries. Awareness extending through her daughter to ancestors, to land itself complete circuit of relationships spanning generations and realities. The newborn in her arms glowed with subtle luminescence, eyes showing awareness impossible for minutes-old infant. "She bridges worlds," Maria observed with reverence. Born during convergence awakening, connected to both ancestors and future simultaneously. The tribal elders maintained ceremonial chants that seemed to stabilize this new equilibrium, traditional knowledge providing framework for unprecedented energy manifestations. Samuel's expression reflected wonder despite lifelong connection to indigenous mysteries. "Our oldest stories speak of such a child," he acknowledged. "One who would restore balance between worlds when boundaries grew too permeable." Jason watched from periphery, aggressive entitlement gradually yielding to reluctant recognition that forces beyond his comprehension were engaged. The child he had claimed as possession demonstrated connection to dimensions he could neither access nor control. That's not normal. He managed witnessing his newborn daughter communicate with ethereal ancestors through means transcending physical limitation. Nothing about Morgan women has ever been normal, Rebecca replied, with newfound pride replacing lifelong shame. Our family exists at intersection of worlds, science and spirit, physical and energetic past and future. The storm outside began gradual transformation from destructive fury to nurturing intensity. Wind patterns shifting to distribute rather than destroy. Rainfall changing from flooding torrent to nourishing abundance. Lightning continuing with reduced frequency and focused primarily on stone circle rather than structures. The convergence awakening stabilizes, Mariah noted with relief. The child's arrival completes necessary connections. 4 generations present, 1 beyond physical form, 3 within it. Westfield remained momentarily stunned from energy discharge through his body worldview, fundamentally altered by experience transcending scientific paradigm. His followers looked to him for direction with increasing uncertainty as supernatural manifestations continued beyond rational explanation. Some power isn't meant for corporate exploitation. Westfield finally acknowledged expensive equipment, now useless in his hands. His gaze moved from machine to newborn with dawning comprehension. What grows here belongs to future generations, not quarterly profit reports. The admission represented personal transformation rather than tactical retreat. Whatever ambition had driven his pursuit of convergence energy had encountered reality exceeding exploitation, potential, mystery, demanding relationship rather than resource extraction. Jason proved less adaptable to paradigm shift occurring around him. "That's still my daughter," he insisted, desperation evident as control slipped further beyond reach. "I have legal rights regardless of whatever this is." The assertion triggered response from convergence itself rather than human participants. Energy coalesced around Jason in containing rather than harmful pattern, golden light forming boundary that gently but firmly moved him toward exit. Property's defensive mechanics operated with intelligence beyond technology, responding to intention rather than action. "The land remembers those who approach with harm in mind," Samuel explained, as Jason struggled against invisible force. "Even blood connection cannot overcome violation of trust." The energy boundary extended its influence, encompassing all Westfield's team, in gentle but irresistible guidance toward property exit. Unlike previous defensive manifestations that merely prevented entrance, this expression actively removed threatening presence while minimizing harm's sophisticated response, indicating heightened intelligence within convergence system. As intruders were escorted from upper floor house structure, itself appeared to heal damage from earlier confrontations, splintered door, reconstructing disturbed furnishings, rearranging to original positions, physical reality, conforming to energy patterns established over generations of Morgan stewardship. In birthing room, ancestral manifestations maintained presence longer than any previous appearance. Margaret approached her great-granddaughter with ethereal hands extended in blessing that manifested as subtle golden glow surrounding infant. "She carries our family's future." Margaret's voice resonated with emotion transcending death itself. "Where I failed through fear and Jack through control, she may succeed through balance." Jack's apparition joined his wife, scientific arrogance softened by decades of reflection beyond physical existence. "I sought to quantify what must be experienced," he acknowledged with regret, tinged with hope. "Perhaps science and tradition can finally find harmony through her." The generational reconciliation created palpable shift throughout property energy, pathways glowing with renewed vitality, visible through floors and walls, ancestral presence, strengthening connection between physical and non-physical aspects of convergence system. Outside storm patterns continued transformation toward beneficial rather than destructive expression. Rainfall moderated to steady nourishment rather than flooding deluge. Wind organized into circular pattern that distributed rather than destroyed. Lightning focused primarily on stone circle energy, channeling properly through established pathways rather than chaotic discharge. The meteorological impossibility registered on weather monitoring systems throughout region, creating data anomalies that would challenge scientific explanation for years afterward. Perfect circular pattern centered on River Pine Ranch, while surrounding areas experienced normal storm dissolution. Bob secured the house as Westfield's team completed their energy-guided exit, ancestrally enforced eviction more effective than any human security measure. The weathered caretaker's expression Combine satisfaction with lingering vigilance. Immediate threat neutralized but fundamental situation unchanged. They'll be back, he noted pragmatically. Different approach, different technology, but same intention. People rarely abandon pursuit of power once glimpsed. Samuel nodded agreement, ancestral wisdom, recognizing pattern, repeated throughout human history. The land's awakening will attract others seeking to control rather than serve. The boundary must be maintained through constant relationship. The birth experience had transformed Olivia beyond physical motherhood. Consciousness expanded through connection to land, ancestors, and convergence energy. Holding her newborn daughter, she perceived interconnections, previously invisible relationship networks extending throughout property and beyond living systems, communicating through means transcending conventional understanding. She shall be Hannah Margaret Morgan. Olivia announced naming connecting past to future through present choice. Family legacy honored while new generation begins. The name itself seemed to stabilize energy fluctuations throughout property final component in rebalancing process that had begun with Olivia's arrival months earlier. Ancestral manifestations nodded approval before gradually fading from perception, returning to dimensional state beyond physical visibility, but maintaining presence felt rather than seen. The storm outside settled into gentle rainfall that nourished without flooding winds, calming to occasional gusts that distributed seeds rather than uprooting trees. Lightning continued at reduced frequency, primarily striking Stone Circle, in rhythm matching infant Hannah's heartbeat convergence system, establishing synchronization with newest Morgan generation. Throughout following day, profound transformation became evident across entire property. Plants visibly responded to birth energy, growing, flowering, fruiting, regardless of normal seasonal limitations. Wildlife returned in unprecedented diversity, species interacting with unusual harmony. Water systems self-organized into optimal flow patterns underground, springs reactivating after decades of dormancy. Rebecca witnessed these manifestations with wonder, replacing lifelong fear of family legacy. What I ran from it has become our greatest strength, she acknowledged, helping Olivia with newborn care while property blossomed around them. The energy never needed controlling, only proper relationship. Maria's ancient wisdom provided framework understanding transformation beyond scientific parameters. 4 generations of Morgan women connected to convergence create stability impossible through any other means. Her weathered hands guided Olivia through traditional postpartum practices while embracing modern medical monitoring Harris provided. The balance you've established will extend beyond property boundaries, healing ripples affecting watershed ecosystem community. By week's end, news of River Pine Ranch's miraculous transformation spread throughout region. Plants grown on convergence energy pathways demonstrated unprecedented nutritional density growth rates and climate adaptability. Water from property springs showed healing properties defying chemical analysis. Even weather patterns surrounding ranch maintained beneficial characteristics long after storm system dissipated elsewhere. Dr. Harris documented these phenomena with scientific rigor while acknowledging limitations of current paradigms to explain observations fully. This represents agricultural breakthrough beyond anything in contemporary research, he concluded after analyzing crops harvested from experimental gardens. Plants demonstrate genetic adaptability occurring in days rather than generations, responding to environmental challenges without technological intervention. Samuel brought tribal council representatives to witness convergence, stabilization, traditional knowledge providing context for unprecedented manifestations. Our ancestors spoke of time when boundaries between worlds would find proper balance, he explained, while Hannah demonstrated awareness far beyond normal developmental expectations, tiny hands reaching toward energy patterns, visible only to certain perceptions. The child born of convergence awakening becomes bridge maintaining that balance. Sheriff Kane managed external boundary issues with pragmatic focus on legal, rather than supernatural considerations. His official reports documented trespassing incidents without attempting to explain energy manifestations he had witnessed personally. County courts granted emergency restraining order against Westfield's corporate entities based on documented incursion during natural disaster, legal protection supplementing energy boundaries metaphysical enforcement. Most surprising transformation occurred in Westfield himself. The energy discharged through his body during equipment failure had fundamentally altered his perception beyond technological manipulation. He approached property boundary alone 1 week after Hannah's birth, standing respectfully at perimeter rather than attempting entrance. I've disbanded the research team and shelved extraction technology permanently, he informed Olivia across boundary that remained visible to those with awareness of its existence. His expression showed fundamental humility, replacing previous exploitation mindset. Some knowledge isn't meant for corporate development, a truth I learned too late but accept completely. Jason proved less adaptable to paradigm shift. His attempts at legal maneuvering continued through increasingly desperate filings, emergency custody petitions, property claims, mental competency challenges. Each met strategic counters from alliance Olivia had established, tribal council legal experts proving particularly effective against conventional tactics. The final confrontation occurred during court-mandated supervised visitation 3 weeks after Hannah's birth. The infant's response to biological father revealed truth beyond legal documentation, energetic withdrawal rather than connection crying that manifested golden boundary visible to everyone present, despite occurring in county administrative building miles from ranch property. The child herself has spoken, Maria observed, as supervision officials documented interaction failure beyond conventional explanation. Blood relation without proper intention creates no true connection. The court's ultimate ruling established sole custody with Olivia while requiring substantial child support payments, financial responsibility, without parental authority. Jason departed region shortly afterward, exploitation opportunity eliminated while financial obligation remained. 1 year later, River Pine Ranch's transformation extended beyond property boundaries in ways both subtle and profound. Agricultural techniques developed through convergence energy research created sustainable practices adopted throughout valley. Water quality improved measurably throughout watershed. Wildlife diversity increased across ecosystem. Even weather patterns showed statistical improvement. Rainfall distribution, optimizing growing conditions. Storm systems, moderating destructive potential while maintaining beneficial effects. Hannah's first birthday coincided with anniversary of convergence awakening to developmental milestones exceeding any conventional expectation. Walking at 7 months, communicating through means transcending verbal language, demonstrating connection to land, ancestors, and energy systems with effortless integration. Plants responded to her presence with visible growth acceleration. Animals approached without fear. Even weather patterns showed subtle responsiveness to her emotional states. The celebration brought together all who had witnessed her extraordinary birth, Bob N., Thomas Maria, and Samuel Dr. Harris, and tribal elders, scientists and traditionalists unified in recognizing significance transcending conventional understanding. Olivia watched her daughter toddle confidently through garden, where miraculous growth had created abundance beyond explanation. Fruits and vegetables demonstrating properties that attracted research interests worldwide. Hannah stopped periodically to commune with plants through touch, communication, visible as subtle energy exchange, tiny hands glowing momentarily at each connection. Rebecca joined them, grandmother's pride evident in every interaction with child who represented healing across generations. The Morgan women have found our true purpose, she observed as Hannah demonstrated ability to direct growth through focused intention, flower blossoming beneath her touch despite being out of season. Not controlling the convergence, but partnering with it. The property boundary maintains subtle luminescence visible to those with proper perception, protection system operating with intelligence transcending technology. Occasional research teams or corporate interests still approach with exploitation, intent only to find themselves gently but firmly redirected through means defying conventional explanation. Dr. Harris had established legitimate research collaboration, documenting agricultural applications without attempting to control underlying energy dynamics, science serving stewardship rather than exploitation. The nutritional density alone represents breakthrough addressing food security globally, he noted, examining fruits containing mineral profiles impossible under conventional growing conditions. And crop resilience to climate extremes could revolutionize agriculture in marginalized regions. Samuel and tribal elders maintained traditional relationship with property through ceremonial acknowledgement, wisdom traditions providing framework for unprecedented convergence, manifestations while respecting Morgan family stewardship. Bob continued practical maintenance with enhanced understanding of property's unique requirements, engineering expertise, applied with awareness of relationship rather than control. The boundary maintenance requires both physical and energetic attention, he explained, while demonstrating integrated system to younger tribal members learning stewardship practices. Harmony rather than dominance. On Hannah's birthday evening, as celebration concluded and guests departed, Olivia stood on porch watching sunset illuminate stone circle with golden light matching boundary manifestations. Her daughter slept peacefully against her shoulder, tiny body occasionally glowing with subtle luminescence matching convergence energy patterns. Rebecca joined them, 3 generations of Morgan women unified in purpose after decades of separation. The property's energy had stabilized beyond expectations, convergence, awakening, finding equilibrium through restored family lineage and balanced relationship approach. We've only begun to understand what's truly possible here, Rebecca observed, as final sunlight triggered momentary appearance of ancestral manifestations. Margaret and Jack briefly visible at Stone Circle before fading from perception. The Morgan legacy continues through Hannah, but with wisdom our previous generations lacked. Olivia nodded agreement, feeling connection extending beyond physical boundaries. Awareness of relationship networks spanning dimensions, generations, and species. The land chose us as much as we chose it, she acknowledged, understanding finally complete. Our family doesn't own this convergence. We belong to it through a partnership renewed with each generation. Hannah stirred against her shoulder, tiny hand reaching towards Stone Circle with perfect awareness, transcending her chronological development. Golden light briefly connected her gesture to underground energy pathways, visible confirmation of connection, spanning physical and non-physical aspects of existence. Some legacies aren't measured in possessions, but in relationships that transcend time itself. Olivia whispered to her daughter, as ancestral presence briefly strengthened around them. 4 generations of Morgan women united across dimensional boundaries, past and future connected through present moment of perfect balance. The land had found its caretakers. The Morgan women had found their purpose. The convergence had found its balance. And Hannah, born of storm and legacy, an awakening power had found her beginning.